Alright, learned something today about computer components, especially for video editors. But if you're not a video editor, I'm pretty sure you can still benefit from this video because, again, we're going to talk about computer components. And I guess everybody uses computers nowadays. So without further ado, let's dive in right after the intro. I still don't have an intro. I'm very sorry for that. Anyways, thank you for my Facebook friends for liking the video that I've made last week. And I hope that this video will be still interesting for you. So what are the good specs for video editing computers? Or particularly for computers, what are the good specs? But before that, you need to know the basic stuff. The basic component of a computer or a laptop and how it will help you in your editing job or in the stuff that you're doing on your computer, like gaming, work, and whatnot. So there is four main components of the computer. As you can see, I have things on the table and it's very unusual. We're going to use that later. So what are those four main components? We have the CPU, the GPU, the RAM, and the storage. To explain that, let me use all this random stuff that I have on the table. Let's just remove this one. This is kind of small. I know it's kind of funny, but I think this is the best thing to do in order for you to understand it well. So, let's assume that this is the CPU. What is the function of the CPU, especially in video editing? Just imagine that the CPU is a worker. A worker who does all the job that you ask in your computer. For example, let's ask the CPU to turn this video to a black and white, like this. So it's his job. It processes the image or video. We will explain further later on. So this is the GPU. I know this is a vape, but let's just assume again that this is a GPU. So think of the GPU as another worker. So if the CPU is a worker, GPU is also a worker. So we have two workers in a computer. However, GPU is a specialized worker. It only works particularly for graphics thing. Let me enlighten you with the job of both of these workers, the CPU and GPU. So the CPU, again, the CPU does almost everything in a computer. When you click a video, when you drag a photo, when you lower the volume. That's weird. CPU almost does all the job in a computer. CPU also handles this video that is playing right now in front of you, that I've made for you, that I edited for you to learn something today. But speaking of video, CPU will ask for help to the GPU. Hey GPU, help me with this job because you're very good at graphical thing. So that's his role. Now let's go with RAM. The RAM is this table, all of this table. Let me just take the storage just for now. So this is the RAM. The RAM is where the CPU and GPU work. This is where they put all the data, information that they are currently working. So let's say we're editing a video right now, this video. So while editing the video, currently on process, the CPU and GPU together, they work together for the project and they put all the information, the data, the project on this table, on this RAM. So I can say that RAM is the workplace of both this worker, which only means that the larger the table is or the larger the RAM is, the more work they can do better. So I'm gonna take the storage again and put it on the RAM. So this is the storage, all right? Actually, it's not really on the RAM. This is separate. Let me just hold this for you. So this is the storage. From the word itself, storage, this is pretty obvious. It stores the files. Let's say we're editing a video and the CPU and GPU is working on the RAM. And let's say you want to stop editing a video and you want to continue editing tomorrow. So you can save all their work inside the storage. So we can have access to their work tomorrow, next 5 years, next 10 years, as long as it's in the storage, it's safe and we can access it directly. So that's the storage. It's pretty obvious though. To sum up everything, in order for you to understand well, you want to edit a video. What are the things that are needed in a video? We need materials like audio, video. Oh sh**. Did I just anyways, we need audio and video. For instance, these are the basic. So where are you going to store that? in the storage. So it's in your computer. And when you start editing the video, those material from the storage will be transferred to RAM, this table, where the CPU and GPU is working together to edit that video. So the CPU will do the editing job, and when it comes to graphical thing, he asks for help. He's male. He asks for help to GPU for graphical thing again. So yeah, these are the basic thing of the computer. FYI, I'm not a computer expert, so everything that I am discussing here are just the basic. These are just very simple. What can I recommend for you? CPU. What CPU to use or what CPU to buy? What I've told you a while ago, that CPU is a worker and CPU has a core. So we have dual core, we have 4 cores, we have 5 cores. Think of it as if you have a lot of cores inside a CPU, then you have a lot of worker. So the more cores, the more worker, the better the performance. So let's say this is a 4 cores. And 4 cores does all the job in video editing. I mean, if you're on a budget, I would say in video editing, the minimum is 4 cores. And 4 cores works just fine. I'm using 4 cores. So whenever you look for a CPU or a processor, look for the cores. How many cores does it have? But again, for the most part, 4 cores can do the job. So let's go to the GPU. Remember when we discussed about RAM, this table? Do you know that GPU also have a separate dedicated RAM? It's called the VRAM. And did you know that there are 2 types of GPU? The integrated GPU and the dedicated GPU. What I can recommend is for you to use dedicated GPU. Simply because integrated GPU has no VRAM. It's a GPU that is built in a CPU. So what I'm saying here is you can run the system unit, you can run the computer without this dedicated GPU, only the CPU. Because when you bought the CPU, when you have the CPU, it has its own GPU inside of it, but it's not that powerful with this dedicated one, and it doesn't have a VRAM. But for hardcore like me, use a dedicated GPU. So with that, I assume right now that you know what to buy. Dedicated GPU. And since we talk about a RAM inside a dedicated GPU, I'm really having a hard time pronouncing words. Just bear with me. I mean, if you're on a budget, you can like buy a dedicated GPU with a 2 GB VRAM. That's the minimum for video editing. But of course, if you have money, the more VRAM, the better the performance. So now, let's talk about RAM. This table, let me just put this again so that you will not confuse you. So this table is the RAM. What I can recommend, to make it short, 32 GB RAM is great. 16 GB RAM is recommended. 8 GB RAM is the minimum. So again, for once, like in the VRAM, the more RAM, the better the performance. Lastly again, the storage. Alright, this is very simple, but did you know that there are 2 kinds of storage? The SSD and the HDD. But to be a straight arrow, I would recommend SSD. It's very fast. Very, very fast than HDD. And we need that, not just only in video editing, but all the jobs that we're doing on the computer. Transferring files and stuff. HDD is slow. But also, what I am doing on my PC, I'm using SSD as my main storage, HDD as the second storage. So I'm doing all the job inside the SSD and I'm going to transfer it to HDD. But again, I would highly recommend you to use SSD. And here's the logic behind that. If you use HDD as your main storage, there's no sense because upgrading CPU, GPU, and RAM and using very slow storage doesn't make sense at all. You know why? Let me just put this again. CPU works fast, GPU works fast, RAM works fast, but the transferring of data is slow. Does that make sense to you now? So storage. So I hope that helped you. If you're undecided what components to buy, at least now you understand the basic. And I am very happy to help. And I would be very happy if you let me know in the comment section that you learned something from this video. And that will motivate me to make more. Why is that there are many viewers on Facebook compared to my YouTube? Mga pungkol mo na ay link sa description, i-click na ninyo. 30 seconds lang tanawang video sa YouTube para mo count. Kung gusto ka mo subscribe. Pungkol ka. So if you have a suggestions, opinions, and whatnot, either negative or positive, feel free to comment down on my YouTube, and I will surely read that. That's for me to improve. Also, as what I'm always writing on the description, when I do videos, I don't do a lot of preparation. I just turn on my camera, turn on this recording mic, and just start talking. So if I have said something wrong or bad that may offend someone or you, please let me know. If there is grammar errors, who cares? I don't. This is Lanzy Boy. Peace out.